Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Subscribers Town Hall. I'm your host for this month, Community Manager Jared Huckabee, and if you've never seen a Subscribers Town Hall before, that's where we invite some of our friends from the development team here at Cloud Imperium Games and Foundry 42, and we ask them questions submitted by our Star Citizen subscribers. Now, a Star Citizen subscriber, that's, I should have practiced that. A Star Citizen subscriber is a subsect of our backing community who contribute additional money every single month to support all of our various web content, like Around the Verse, Bug Smashers, Lore Maker's Guide to the Galaxy, and of course, these Subscribers Town Halls. So we are taking questions from the subscribers. Of course, anybody can watch, and yes, if you do cross, you will cross in front of the camera.
It's a live show, people.
It's a live show. So if you do want to submit questions, whether you're watching on Twitch or YouTube today, we're taking questions live from the subscriber chat in Spectrum. So Spectrum is our own bespoke communications platform. You can go to robertspaceindustriescom, log in with your robertspaceindustriescom account, and of course go to the subscribers chat, and that's where we'll be taking questions. With that, let's get to our guests. Some of them you may have seen before, some of them may be brand new. So we'll start immediately here to my left. Why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
My name's Dave Haddock. I am the lead writer over here at Cloud Imperium.
Thanks for coming on, Dave.
Thank you.
And yourself, sir, Will.
Hi, I'm Will Weisbaum. I'm senior writer here at the Los Angeles Cloud Imperium Games Studio.
All right.
It's good to be on the show.
It's a little less good than Dave, but it's cool. No. And joining us from our UK studio, Foundry 42 UK, is technical designer Johnny Jasivius. Johnny, how you doing, man?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for staying up. I see the sun's going down in the window out behind you there.
Yeah, just about.
All right.
Not too late though. It's fine.
All right. Now, Johnny, I believe this is one of the first times we've had you on a show, especially a live broadcast like this. Why don't you tell the folks who have seen our broadcast before, who may not know who you are, what does a technical designer do for Star Citizen?
How long do you have?
We've got an
hour. We generally do a lot of setup. So one of our main jobs is piecing ships together to go in game. So we'll take everything from the ship art to the animations and just kind of knit them together, ready for use in game. So every ship that you see will originally come in one piece. We split that up into workable parts. We'll split the thrusters off, make those work, split the guns off, make those work. And yeah, that's essentially one of the main things that we do.
All right. And Will and Dave, as writers for Star Citizen and Squadron 42, what does that mean? You just write a script and you're done?
Well, just first, real quick, just to prove to everyone that he is not actually here. And there is...
This is not an illusion.
No wires.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of have a handful of things that we sort of dip our toes in. You know, a lot of it is script writing, but a lot of it is also just it's building out the universe itself and the background and the various worlds and systems and aliens and guns and hull plating and so and there was a doc we did about fruit recently, which was very exciting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Is tomato still a fruit in the Star Citizen universe?
Of course.
Maybe 930 years from now, we just reclassify it as
I love chicken parm, so of course it's
Yeah, I mean, when it came down to the recent re-kicking off all the Banu ships once again from the beginning, we had done our original lore, but there's all these questions that come up that we don't necessarily think about that designers want to know about, like, do they use stairs or ladders, or like what's alien about this? So it was really fun to start diving into those conversations and fleshing all that out more. And so kind of providing inspirations for the other departments, for the artists, for the designers, and for them to bounce stuff off us and us adding to it. And just,
I mean, it's one of those things that's really tricky when you're asked to like, hey, make a civilization. It's obviously it's a very daunting question.
Go
make
build a civilization.
Build. Be happy, and but a lot of the thing that actually helps it is getting specific questions of hey, how do their guns work? What type of weapons do they have and stuff like that? Because then you can focus on a smaller part of it, and then in doing so, it can help you inform, other areas and stuff like that. So it's a great way to kind of hook into building a very large sprawling thing.
And that, of course, is what we're here talking about today. We have just recently launched the Banu Defender, which is the second ship for our one of our alien races in Star Citizen, the Banu, the first race that humanity discovers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
You are not?
So we are, in addition to taking questions live in the subscriber chat, we have also had a thread up in Spectrum all week where we collected questions from subscribers who maybe weren't able to be here live during the show. Questions about the Banu, questions about all kinds of alien races. We got questions about Vandal, we got questions about Kurthak, we got questions about the Xi'an, and we got a number of questions about the Banu Defender, which is why we have our lovely friend from the UK here, Mr. Johnny DeSivia. So Johnny, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Let me just pick a question completely at random here. Let's see, which question from the thread what should we ask first? Okay, how about this? Hey, Johnny, what's up with the Banu Defender visibility? What can you tell us about the Banu Defender visibility?
You caught me off guard, Jared.
If it's okay, I'll handle this one, Johnny. No, please.
No, so it's important to get across that concept is exactly that. It's more there to get across the look and feel of the ship rather than like make an exact replica of the ship that we're going to put in game. And obviously it's going to be very similar, and we try and get measurements and placement exact, but minor changes get made as ships get built for in-game use. So we've already got a solution ready to go, and that'll start to get put in place when our vehicle artists start working on it.
Yeah, for subscribers who have the monthly Jump Point magazine, you may have noticed this month's Jump Point had a behind-the-scenes featurette on the Banu Defender, and during all the different concepts. And one of the comments in there is from Chris Roberts himself about the visibility of the Defender. So it's been something that we're aware of. It's something that we have a couple solutions that we're looking at, and by the time it comes time to build it, I think you'll enjoy your Banu Defender. So thank you, Johnny, for that. And now everybody can go home. That's the only question anybody wants to know.
That was the main one.
So we, of course, are collecting questions from chat. We'll start with another one right from the thread while chat gets going. On Gotham, do you think they will ever settle Jim Gordon into a consistent character?
This was my question, by the way.
This is from a D Haddock in... No, okay. It says, the Banu have been said to occasionally trade with the Vandal. Does this mean we might run into potentially non-hostile Vandal at a Banu trading post, or at least Banu who simply don't attack us on sight?
Maybe. I mean, they trade with the Banu. They don't necessarily trade with us. So it might be one of those things where they might be cool with them, but we kind of pop in and say like hello, and then just.
Yeah, because it's going to be interesting to see what you find with the Vandal when you're exploring in space. Because most of the Vandal that you run into in human space are specifically coming there on scavenging runs, basically. They're there to take our stuff. So they come with their teeth bared.
Yeah.
But how they're going to behave when, in a trading area, or maybe the Banu might have to go out to them, make house deliveries, since the Vandals don't play well in well-populated cities and stuff like that.
So the Vandal trade with the Banu, but not with humanity. What do the Banu have that we don't?
Who knows? I mean, they're super friendly, as everyone knows. So maybe they've.
We're not saying too much about it. Hopefully, this will be one of the things that we'll save for players to experience for themselves when they get out this big mystery of.
Yeah. I mean, it's still it's early going, so it's you don't want to be like, you want to have players discover stuff on their own. So you don't want to.
Another one of the highest upvoted questions on the thread is a follow-up to this one. I don't think that we have the answer yet, but I wanted to ask it because it is one of the most highest voted. Will it be possible to buy Vandal goods from a Banu merchant, since they trade with the Banu? Would the Banu turn around and take those Vandal things?
Probably.
I would expect so.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about the possibility of like the Banu flotillas and trade centers being kind of bustling hubs of all the species. You can find all their goods there because to kind of sell the idea that Banu are hopping around from all the systems.
I mean, it certainly tracks with sort of their character and personality that they would, obtain some stuff from Vanduul and then come and try and sell it off to whoever would be willing to buy it. So
Because if they're trading with the Vanduul, then they're getting something from the Vanduul, and the question is, what do they do with that stuff that they're getting? Do they sell it back to us? Do they use it for their own ships or devices or weapons? So,
Johnny, we had a number of questions in the thread about the stats on the Banu Defender. Now, as folks who follow Star Citizen regularly know, we are in the middle of a major ship stats page refresh. Right now, the ship stats, as we're designing them, cannot be reflected 100% accurately on the current web implementation that we have. So when we released the ship on Friday, we showed the stats as best we could with the implementation that we have on the website right
the
now.
stats are so good, the internet can't handle them.
Yes. I'm hoping that you have the stats up somewhere, and if you don't, this is your lead-in so that you can bring them up at the time that I get to this question. Many of the questions were just clarification issues on the size of the guns, the size of the gimbals, stuff like that. Would you mind giving us just a very quick, top-level rundown of the stats of the Banu Defender?
Yeah, so there seemed to be some confusion with the shield generators, power plants, and the weapons. The ship doesn't come with one size 1 shield, it comes with one size 2 shield, so it's got that bigger, beefier shield there. As mentioned in the description, it's its big big selling point, like it's got a weak hull and it's got stronger shields to make up for it. So we weren't going to put it out with one size 1 shield, even if it is of Tavaran origin. And it was also listed as having one size 1 power plant in some places as well, but it actually does have 2. Otherwise it might struggle with powering that bigger shield. And finally, there was a lot of confusion around the weapon mounts and the gimbals. So it comes equipped with 4 size 2 weapons on size 3 gimbals. So you'll be able to swap those out for size 3 fixed weapons if you want to.
Gotcha. Now, we, of course, will have our normal Q&A post like we do for every concept sale. We take questions from a thread in Spectrum, and then Johnny will be kind enough to deliver answers. That post will go up on Thursday, and it'll be a nice, big, supersized post. So
but the thread to ask questions is up right now to vote and stuff.
I'm just saying that if we don't answer your particular question today, check back on the Q&A post on Thursday. All right. Now, you mentioned the Tavaran shields. This may be a question for the whole table here. The Banu Defender, it's a Banu ship, but it's got shields from the Tavaran, and it's got engines from the Xi'an.
yes.
How do we, besides just asking why, how do we imagine that affects, why does that make this ship unique amongst other ships?
Well, I mean, part of it it was sort of illustrating this idea that like the Banu, they like stuff that works best for whatever they're trying to build. So like for whatever reason, the Xi'an thrusters were better than the previous thrusters that they had on there. So they were like, oh, that's great. Thank you. And took it and absorbed it into their tech. And the same with the Tavaran. I mean, we've always sort of hinted at the fact that part of the Tavaran arsenal was their impressive defensive capabilities. So they saw that, they were like, perfect, thank you, and took that and absorbed it into their thing. So a lot of it was just kind of, and we hadn't really done that with a lot of other ships, with this sort of thing that like this sort of amorphous blend of alien technology, which would be just, so it just seemed kind of like a cool thing that illustrated an aspect of their personality in their technology.
So yeah, if you go aboard an all Banu ship, maybe you'll see that they're still running a human cooler or something, because that's a really good product and they're happy to use it. You don't need to stick to a Banu tech just because they're Banu.
One of the questions that came through in the Spectrum live chat, will you be considering using Tavaran technology to make it so the Banu can see through the arms of the Defender?
The Prowler thing.
Yeah, Prowler has the transparent hull cockpit. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Neat.
No, that wasn't part of the plan anyway. The visibility will be improved to the point where you'll be able to see quite easily.
Gotcha. All right.
I'm just picturing like a Banu flying around in Wonder Woman's invisible jet right now.
Yeah.
Another question from the live chat. Are there Banu that dislike humans, or is it more just towards the UEE? Do the Banu not like the UEE?
No, I mean, I think they're okay with that.
They go to the UE Christmas party every year.
Sure. Yeah,
There are definitely Banu who probably have issues with humans who
Yeah.
like, had a deal gone wrong with, a human faction, and they held it against, larger
Yeah.
thing like of learn not to trade with them or something like that.
I mean, again, it's like anything, we want to make sure we have that sort of spectrum of personalities in there. So, there might be Banu who dislike the UEE but like humans, and, vice versa, stuff like that. So.
Another question from the live chat. We did an ATV special a while back on the Xi'an language.
Yes.
This question is about the Banu language. Can you say anything about what the Banu language is like and how proficient the Banu are in general in English? In English, it says?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, we have, as far as the language itself, we haven't gotten to that one yet. Britain is still working on the Xi'an and Vandal at the moment. I mean, again, I would imagine that they were probably fairly proficient in the standard, whatever we want to call that.
I can see them being polyglots, like speaking a bunch of the languages, but maybe none of them that well.
Yeah, I mean because at least with the sort of the characters the Banu characters that we've sort of explored, a lot of them are functionally fluent in it, but they don't sound like human beings. They have a certain sort of affectation to how they speak, but I don't know if they're necessarily reflective of like a Banu diplomat. What's such a thing? Actually, I don't know. We've never specified if they have straight up diplomats, but someone who's dedicated to come over and interact with humans might have less of the Banu affectations, or how much of that will bleed through, we're still sort of figuring out.
Johnny, how will the different metrics between humans and aliens be addressed? Obviously, this was a ship originally designed for Banu, and if we all know from the concept images of the Banu merchantmen, the Banu are only 3 inches tall. How do you adjust the cockpit for the Banu to a human?
Well, what people don't realize is that the Banu Defender is only 3 meters long.
Oh, okay.
No, obviously not.
What challenges? What's being done because we've got a number of alien ships. We've got the Scythe and the Glaive, and we've got the Xi'an Scout, and now we've got the Banu Defender. What kind of thought goes into making these cockpits that were originally designed for aliens usable for humans?
Generally, a lot of the kind of at least the races I've touched aren't too far from human proportions. I know the design of the Vandal ships was handled over there in LA, which is where they came up with the massage bed cockpit seats, as people like to call them. So there are some little interesting challenges, but fortunately the Banu seem to use, or the Defender at least, uses controls that humans are quite familiar with. So because they're reasonably human-sized, we haven't really had much of a problem with them so far.
And the Defenders that people are buying are specifically made for human consumption. So
yeah. So if you come across a Banu ship in the wild, it might look vastly different from what you're buying.
Gotcha. Now, are the Banu Defenders made for humans by the Banu, or are they made for humans by like a company like a Spirit?
No, the Banu were like, hey, humans seem to like these ships. There you go.
So we've talked a little bit about how they have these Sulis, so these guilds, and so they have manufacturing guilds that specialize in making products. So there's a couple different guilds that specialize in making Banu Defenders for humans, and that's their whole shebang.
Yeah, so as opposed to sort of what we describe as a human approach to corporations and stuff like that, like the sort of the designs for the Defender are just available in Banu space, basically. So if there's a Suli that wants to manufacture ships, they can get a hold of the designs fairly easily, and then it just becomes that Suli's Banu Defender, So with this, we're basically saying that, yeah, these Sulis are making specifically human-modified Defenders for human operation.
Another question from the live chat. Do the Banu have a Senate, or in some way all the individual planets stay in contact?
We had sort of, the setup that we had for them was basically that there would be that all the Banu planets were independently kind of operated, that they sort of ran into their own steam. And then if there was a situation arose that required the Banu to make a decision about something, they had a couple of options. They had a thing called the Gathering, which would be basically the heads of the planet would kind of get together to talk over the issue and figure out a solution. And then there was the ones on, is it Therese? I always get confused.
I think so.
The kind of religious collective that would offer insight as to sort of how the Banu could move forward. But the idea was that the Gathering would be sort of their equivalent of like a Senate. And then if a situation arose where like they were being threatened with war or something like that, this Gathering would convene to kind of talk over, what they would do, and if they needed to hire basically an army to, defend themselves.
Now, Johnny, we made some jokes a little earlier about the size of the Banu, considering some of the concept art that accompanied the Defender of the Banu merchantman. It's safe to say that the Banu merchantman in the concept art was very, very large. And while the ship is certainly getting bigger, it's not getting bigger to the scale that we've seen in some of the concept art. What can you tell us about can you confirm that the ship is actually getting bigger?
The merchantman.
The merchantman.
I'm afraid I can't say much about that at the moment.
Well, I was prepared. I actually had a chat with John Crew and Todd Pappy before the show, just in case you didn't have the answer. So I actually do have the answer. The answer is yes. The merchantman is getting larger. It is getting significantly larger. It is not as big as you see in those images. It's not bigger than an Idris. For instance, I think some of the images, there was one image where somebody was doing some fantastic geometry in there and figuring out that the scale in one of the images had it as big as a javelin. And it is not that big. It is not as big or bigger than the Idris. Obviously, we won't know precisely how big it will be until we start building it. But think somewhere around the lines of the Polaris as far as size. It is a very large ship, and internally we're beginning to think of it as a Banu-style capital ship. Yeah. So yes, so it is getting very large. Just we won't know precisely how large until it comes time to build it. And when are we going to build it? We have our production schedule up on the website now. You can see precisely when that ship is.
I thought you were pointing at me for a second.
Yeah, I was going to say jump on it.
Gotcha.
So when are we working on it, Will?
Here's a question for you, Johnny. It says not Banu related, and you may not know it. Is a size 3 fixed mount being considered for the Mustang refresh? Are you familiar with that? It's one of the questions that was fed to me here.
Unfortunately, that's not something I'm handling, so I won't be able to comment on that.
That's all right. This is one of those things where not everybody's capable of answering every single question. Is designing an alien ship more challenging than designing a human ship?
Yeah, of course. We've kind of our design process has always been designing human ships, so it's quite interesting when a alien ship or like kind of the alien spanner gets thrown into the works, because there's always special requirements for them. So that's when I kind of get on the line to Will and Dave, and we start to figure out what is specifically needed, what kind of like how the race works, and kind of how we can fit them in on the ship and make it unique in their own way.
All right. And do you prefer working on alien ships or human ships?
Aliens are definitely a lot more fun. It lets you be a bit more creative with the design and kind of implement some differences rather than having your kind of standard human fighters. We've obviously got this dual cockpit system going on this, and obviously it's quite a different shape to a lot of ships we've had before, so it's definitely a nice mix-up.
All right. Let's see. We have another question here. Let's see, what do we got here? Will owners of alien ships have a more difficult time sourcing materials and components to keep their ships operating correctly?
They shouldn't do. They should, especially in the case of the Banu ships, you should be able to fit in things like human items in there, or human-produced items in there. So you won't necessarily, if your Tavaran shield goes bust, you won't necessarily have to fit a Tavaran shield back in there, but you'll be able to slot a human one in instead.
Interesting. So the components that a ship comes with when we sell it in its concept is not necessarily the only components that you can equip in a ship. I mean, these are the items that the ship comes with initially, but you'll be able to swap out coolers, you'll be able to swap out power plants, swap out shields, and maybe even upgrade them. So while the cool Tavaran shield comes with it, and maybe the cool Xi'an engines come with it, you could possibly upgrade them to even better components, maybe even from different races or sources.
Yeah, you can upgrade, downgrade, side grade. Like the choice is yours, really. But I wouldn't recommend getting rid of the Tavaran shield. It'll be too good.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it might also be like where you're acquiring the alien ship, like there's potential there for some parts to be, like Johnny said, like you could do human equivalent, but maybe if you want to maintain that specific, harder to find part, you might have to venture out into the far reaches of the universe and hunt it down.
Gotcha. We were doing some microphone gymnastics while we were on Johnny, so sorry for keeping so many questions on you. We had to hide some work we were doing here at the table. Question for our lore team here from the live chat. I've really enjoyed the lore for the Banu, as the storytelling reminds me of a story style of the Ferengi on Star Trek. Does the Star Citizen team of writers favor certain styles of storytelling akin to other popular sci-fi titles? Where do you steal your stuff from?
All over, really.
I mean, we definitely looked at some of the more common trading races that have been in sci-fi culture. The Ferengi were one of them, and then we kind of try to put that aside because we knew that was the main comparison people would be drawing, and tried to, what was a tone that would make sense for them, and what could make them not only unique inside Star Citizen, but unique in science fiction, but also feel true and not just weird for the sake of being weird.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's that certain element where it's like, if again, you sort of will reach into other pop culture things as like a starting point, just to go, it's be sort of like this, but sort of like this. But then, yeah, you obviously want to focus on like making them feel like they're their own thing and not just a collection of references and stuff like that.
We definitely look a lot to history, a lot of times for actual working societies, and being like, this element here for their political or social setup, it was very cool of this small group of people. And then can we incorporate that? Or what if that became the dominant aspect of a society, and how would that look?
From the subscriber thread, how do Banu procreate? Do they live in similar family structures like human, one man, one woman, kids, or do they have different families?
I don't know about we haven't worked out the procreation thing, but they don't actually have families. Was sort of the thing that the kids basically, when they have a child, they basically sell it into the sort of what they call evaluation sulis. So basically,
I'm a Banu.
Yeah, it was sort of weirdly referenced to Plato's Republic, this idea that like by taking away, I mean, in that book, you take away the kids and like have the state basically raise them in the sense of it creates brotherhood, because you don't know who, anyone can be your kid because you don't know who your kid is. So it's supposed to, create camaraderie or whatever. But for our purposes, it was more of, they put the kid in a evaluation suli who raises them, educates them, trains them, while also testing to figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are, and their mental aptitude and spatial abilities and stuff like that. And then basically once they kind of reach an age, they are sold off to a guild, a suli, that basically will be their career. So
yeah, like this kid had really fast hand-eye coordination and tested well in math, so maybe like a piloting suli who trains like best fighter pilots would be eager to get that, snatch that kid up and train him up, because Banu, when they transition from the evaluation kind of guilds, when they go in, they've been purchased basically, so they have an apprenticeship where they have to work off till obtain full membership in society as an individual. So, if you're really skilled, they'll become a well-valued member of the guild pretty fast, and if not, they have a hard time. They might be working in a lower position for a long time. And at which point, once they've paid off their kind of schooling, basically, to the original guild, they can choose to stay there or to move on or
start their own.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Every time you say suli, I keep wanting to ask, is there going to be a Hikaru suli? One of the sulis. Never mind. That's why they don't let me in the writer's room. Hey, Johnny. might not be a question we know the answer to until it comes time to build both ships, but people continue to ask if the Defender will be able to dock or somehow land inside a Banu merchantman.
We're still trying to work that out. Yeah. So I think it's a case of we want it to, but it's fitting it in and making sure that it fits in properly. So there's no guarantees there at all, but we're looking at it actively currently.
We have a weekly newsletter, and a couple weeks ago, in our sneak peek in the weekly newsletter was a Banu weapon. It looked very different from the typical, Revenant guns or any of the human guns. Mm-hmm. Is there anything specific about Banu weaponry that we can talk about that sets it apart from human weaponry?
I'll defer to Johnny on that one.
I mean, I know the Defender comes with a tachyon cannon, doesn't it, Johnny?
Yes, it does. It's one of our new weapon types that we're introducing with the Banu Defender, so it'll be the first weapon of this type that we're actually introducing into the game. So you can expect it to have all kinds of new VFX, and the projectiles will behave a lot differently from the weapons we've actually seen currently. It's a super long-range, high-speed projectile, which kind of makes the Defender ideal for engaging at longer ranges.
Right.
What kind of damage does the tachyon do versus normal energy?
Does it send its bad guys back in time, or?
No, it doesn't. It's just kind of it's a standard energy weapon, but it's the particles are accelerated to kind of faster than light speeds, so it'll be difficult to miss if you've got your targets or if you've got your sights over the target.
Right. While we're talking about weapons, in Spectrum Chat this weekend, there was quite a bit of confusion, quite a bit of questions about just how many weapons the Banu Defender has. Can you just run down the weapon complement for the stock Defender?
Yeah, sure. It comes with 4 size 2 tachyon cannons on the gimbal mounts, and it comes with I'll have to just double check this, 2 size 3 missile racks with 4 size 2 missiles in total.
Gotcha. So 4 tachyon cannons, 2 missile racks.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. How do the Banu rank militaristically to other alien races in terms of experience and tactics? Do the Banu have as much experience in war as, let's say, the Xi'an or the Tavaran? Has there been a big Banu war? And if there was, would they remember it?
They would not. Yeah, they would have no idea. I mean, it feels like militaristically, just off the top of my head, I think they would probably stack. I mean, the Tavaran were a dedicated military society, so they're definitely lower than them.
I think in individual small skirmishes, they can probably hold their own.
Yeah.
I mean, they have these, defense and mercenary guilds that are still highly skilled warriors. But it would come down to, once you start talking about larger scale operations, maybe they wouldn't quite match up to someone like the Xi'an, who are very good at overall strategic, planning and can conceive on stuff on a much grander scale.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, so I could see, like, when you have an outlaw pack going against a squad of Banu Defenders, you're in for a tough time. These are people who've been training their whole life to fly Banu Defenders.
That's their job, is to fight.
This is their job, is to fight off outlaws, so you'd expect them to be really good.
Yeah.
But like coordinating with like 5 other guilds to do something maybe is not something.
There might be sort of a communication breakdown if you had like 16 Sulis, war Sulis that had gotten together to form this big army and stuff like that, and they all have different ways of doing things and stuff. So yeah, it might not be as efficient, but yeah, on a sort of individual level, it probably be.
We talked about a general kind of tone about like how do the Banu look towards violence overall, right, and how it's kind of seen as fairly wasteful an endeavor. Like if you could make peace and both profit, that's a better road for everyone involved. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So that's kind of, but they're not afraid. Sometimes violence is the only option, and then they bring the pain.
Now, Johnny. You're a technical designer for Foundry 42 UK. You've been working on ships, but I know that you're about to move into FPS stuff.
I am, yes.
We have a question here. You might not, something to think about. I don't think you'll have an answer. But what type of handheld weapons do the Banu prefer? I mean, has there been any thought about some Banu handheld weapons, maybe for Star Marine?
Not quite yet.
No?
We've definitely got some plans for alien weapons in the works, but we've not got anything solid down for Banu yet.
I mean, they probably have a pretty good like stun weapon. I would say be a common part of the Banu arsenal. Let's try to keep the goods intact as much as possible.
Yeah. They probably have a pretty lethal handshake. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I don't know. I tried subscribers. All right. Do the Banu breathe other atmospheres besides oxygen? Have we gotten that granular with the Banu yet?
Not specific gases yet, but overall we've talked about how their survivability is much higher than humans.
Yeah,
they can exist in a much broader range of environments.
I can't remember the name of the specific system, but if you go on the star map, there's actually a system that has arcologies that basically the atmosphere is lethal to humans, but not to them, but they still want humans to come visit, so they've built these sort of arcologies so you can hang out inside while they hang out outside and like
enjoy the beautiful Banu vacation world.
Yeah,
you know.
and wave at you.
Adam, if you're listening, put it in the chat for everyone. Thanks.
One of the most upvoted questions on the thread here. Can we hire Banu AI for the Banu ships? Has there been any talk about that yet? It might be a little too early for something like that.
It can't promise anything, but it's not, there's no hard no on it yet.
Yeah.
I guess to say, to dip a tentative toe into that pool. It's something that seems like it would be fun to be able to do, but the ramifications of it still need to be investigated further.
One of my favorite answers to a question like that is, it's not a question that has an answer yet. The answer doesn't exist to that question just yet. But yeah, it's interesting. He goes on to talk about how Banu AI might be able to negotiate better prices at terminals.
Right.
This guy was going all into what a Banu AI could be. So and the other subscribers seem to be interested in it. So something to
I mean, you know, it's one of those like visually exciting things of having an alien.
I mean, this is a subscriber town hall, so hopefully a lot of people have read Drifters and you get an idea of the fun of having like a Banu on your crew.
Right.
Read that story if you haven't. It's really good.
We've got a follow-up to the Banu war question here. Since the Banu aren't particularly interested in war, they don't see the purpose of it, would that in turn make them exceptionally good at diplomacy with other races?
Yes, in a weird way, because you also have to bear in mind that, and again, this is kind of the fun of coming up with these sort of interesting, almost paradoxical personality things. They don't keep track of history. So sort of one of the things that we realized was that they would probably need to, what started as a discussion about Sulis of, you know, if a Suli were to dissolve and I had, as a human corporation, was getting my materials from the Suli and then it dissolves and another Suli takes its place, I have to renegotiate my contract with that Suli because the previous one isn't going to honor a contract that they didn't sign. So I have to basically constantly renew a contract with them.
Yeah, so contracts are agreements between two parties, and if one of that party dies or is no longer existing or something, then the contract
is
dies.
null and void. So you have to renegotiate. So what ended up happening was, in the conversation, was we realized that they had signed a trade agreement with humanity when we met each other, and so did that mean that they basically had to keep renegotiating that contract every sort of generation and stuff? And so yeah, basically they've gotten really good at diplomacy, but it might be kind of frustrating that you'd have to constantly re-up your...
Yeah, every couple of years explaining to the Banu why they can't bring in slaves into the UE space, and like, yeah, your drugs are great, but please stop trying to bring them.
Right. They keep trying to import Banu Love Slave number 4. Hey, Johnny, there's another question from the live chat here. Because alien races have so much unique lore tied to their tech, how closely do you have to work with the writers during the development process? And is it super annoying?
I think I can answer that one.
It's only annoying when they tell us that we can't do things that we want to.
All right.
But
I'm sorry.
I don't know. Is it annoying for you guys?
No, how closely do you have to work? You're there at the beginning of a concept, right? At the beginning of the idea here?
Yeah, I mean, usually it starts with somebody saying like, you know, hey, it'd be really cool if we could do this, and then it kind of goes from there. Like, you know, and we've had situations where it's like, this might not be actually work for the Banu, but is great for the Xi'an, or vice versa, or stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, we try to keep in contact as much as possible, and you know, make sure that everyone's work is being reinforced by everyone else's work and stuff. And you know, we're not going out and saying stuff that they don't want as a direction. So it's sort of a give and take with all the departments.
Yeah, sometimes it's easier for us to create something on paper that we can present and be like, well, this would be really awesome for the Banu to do.
Right.
And then, you know, it's up to wonderful designers to come back and be like, well, this is what we actually can do. And then we'll go like, okay, that's cool, but what if we did this one small thing? I mean, the having the Defender be, you know, a multi-crew ship was probably one of the biggest thing to come out of those discussions about how the Banu would operate and how they would want, you know, to be able to focus on specific things while flying around. It's going to be interesting to see how that affects kind of, I mean, have you been like planning out how that's actually, because we have like the Hornet, the Super Hornet has, it's not a man turret, is it? Am I blinking?
It's a turret that you can take remote control over, yeah.
Yeah.
The seats behind the pilot.
So like that kind of multi-crew fighter versus something like the Defender, which has, I think, more abilities with those seats kind of designed with sitting side by side.
Yeah, the co-pilot in the Defender is going to see a lot more action. There's going to be a lot they can do in terms of engineering, gunning, because they'll have control of the entirety of the ship's guns. So as long as you've got gimbals on there, you're going to have a very useful gunner on there with you. If you're putting fixed weapons on there, then they might not have quite a good time and they'll be shouting at the pilot the entire time. But then, because a lot of the ship items are housed on the interior, they can also get out the seat, go and repair stuff if it's on fire, while the pilot tries to get them out of danger. So yeah, it's super important to work with these guys that early on, because as an example, they might have envisioned something completely different than us, and once we get the design down, concepts already started, we might get a message from these guys saying this is completely the wrong direction that you're going with these guys, and not we had planned at all. So it's good to get everything kind of knitted together early on.
If they have you trapped and you need help, just blink twice. That was one blink. All right. I'm gonna go off the script here. Over to your left on your whiteboard, I see this, what looks like this little turtle thing in the lower corner. What is that? What
we
is
don't
that little
talk about that, Jared.
We don't talk about that?
No.
No,
it doesn't have a name.
Is it named Jeff Steve?
It's not. Just off screen, there's the scores between Jeff and Steve there.
Oh.
I won't keep you updated on those.
Right.
But I think that was originally a layout of the Terrapin that someone turned into some kind of weird turtle human.
All right.
So,
Yeah.
Unprompted by a question, but something else that I'm remembering now that was fun in our earlier discussions was talking about the Defender's role in actually defending the Minutemen in these trade organizations, and how that would be like a main focus for a fighting ship in Banu would be like, all right, our big valuable cargo ships being attacked. So the Defender, we were talking about how it's there to make sure that the cargo can get away safely. Mm-hmm. It's not there to win the fight itself. It's there to make sure that the valuable cargo can get away. And
one of the questions that came up a lot in the thread, Johnny, was what role we expected the Defender to play. Like how do we think gameplay in a Defender, besides having two pilots and one person flying, one person shooting, what kind of gameplay opportunities can people look for with the Defender? I mean, I know it's called the Defender. Does that mean it can't be used for attack? I mean,
correct.
What does it have a prime directive like RoboCop? How do you envision players using the Defender?
Well, funnily enough, I had this discussion with someone in the office today, and they said, why is it called the Defender if it's got a fragile hull? And I was like, well, it defends the merchantman. It's not a defensive ship itself. So it is quite an offensive ship, and the way we've kind of designed it, it's more kind of suited to hit and run attacks. So it'll be able to buzz around any attackers that are coming for the merchantman or the fleet that it's guarding. And if they ignore it, it'll be able to pack a big punch with the cannons that are outfitted on there. But if they come after it, it's going to be able to survive long enough and draw them away from the fleet that the merchantman can get away quite easily.
All
So it's very nimble. Is the thing to take away from this.
And
Looks
also,
like it would be.
one of the things too was it was in a weird way sort of about branding as well. It was when talking about the name, it was like as Johnny said, yeah, it's designed to defend the ship, but also it was the idea that giving it an aggressive name would feel somewhat contrary to the Banu as sort of their spirit type thing, and also the kind of gag of merchantman is a merchant ship. This is a defender ship, a defense ship, so they called it a defender.
Now, the original working name, and we've shared this with the community before, was Minutemen.
Yes.
Where did that come from?
I don't recall. It was one of those names that was, I think it just kind of existed on one of the early write-ups, and it just sort of stayed.
Yeah, I think Ben explained it in the Jump Point article this month that he had thought of it. It's a natural Ben-like pun off of Merchantmen to have a fighting ship Minutemen. They did pair well together, but in the end we went away from the working title to have something that captured the spirit of the ship a little bit.
A lot of the questions in the thread had to do with people curious about how flying through different regions of space we're going to go. One of the questions that popped out was, if I choose to go into Xi'an space and pass through the Kurthak space, would the Xi'an see me as hostile given their relationship with the Kurthak? Because you're coming from Kurthak space, but if you're in a Banu ship,
wait, if you're flying through Xi'an space to get to Kurthak space.
This says if you flew through Kurthak space to enter Xi'an space.
Oh.
You came from the wrong side, I guess.
Yeah, probably. They would probably not. If they knew you were coming from there, they probably wouldn't be too thrilled about it. I don't think they would necessarily treat you as hostile. I mean, who knows? But they probably wouldn't be too thrilled about it.
We've got a ways to go before we have to.
Yeah, the Kurthak.
My best theory for the Kurthak when I first started was that the Kurthak are just super cool and the Xi'an don't want them to know about us because they'll lose them as best friends.
Right. They all drive convertible ships and wear sunglasses.
All right. I'm struck by how that seems like a thing I would come up with. It's that lame, Will. To follow up on that, will having a Banu ship make it easier for us to travel safely through a Banu system without hostile reaction? Now, I think we've kind of answered that. Banu don't really have hostile reactions.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess part of it's going to be sort of how your ship appears, because again, like, you're going to have a reg tag or something that shows up on a HUD. So whether that shows as a human ship or a Banu ship.
Maybe get preferred parking in Banu space if you're in a Banu ship.
Yeah.
all the parking spots.
Free valet.
Like when you're going to the saddle ball tournament, all the parking spots up front are all labeled Banu.
Right.
And everybody else has to park in the back. But if you're in a Defender, you can pull up.
Right to the front.
Write it down, Johnny.
Yeah, I think someone else, there was like another question in the threads about, like, because the Banus are really proud of their merchantmen, whether they'd be upset seeing a human flying one. And like, I don't think so at all. Yeah. I think it would make them happy to see like Banu trades spreading. Like that's a big part of their cultures, the sharing of.
Yeah.
Xi'an might roll their eyes if you show up in a scout.
You're trying really hard.
Now, speaking of the scout, the Xi'an Scout is the only ship that we've revealed and sold to the backers that's from the Xi'an. In lore, there was a Xi'an Scout has been used for racing. There was a famous Xi'an racing scout. We have one of our hangar flares actually the racing version. Yeah. I don't remember the name of the pilot. So one might assume that Xi'an engines can be pretty fast. With Xi'an engines in the Defender, how do you think the Defender would fare as a racer, Johnny?
I think it would be able to put up a good fight, but it's not a true racer. And while it's quite light, it's never going to match kind of like the maneuverability and the speeds of the M50 and the 350R and even the racing prep Mustangs. But of the non-racing ships, it'll definitely put up good times.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see once we get kind of the modding and part switching that comes with item 2.0.
Exactly. You're speaking of a stock Defender, but
yes,
maybe we can modify it. Do some Fast and the Furious action on it.
I'm not ruling it out.
Oh, but what if the M50 people modify their ships too? No.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's a good time to remind folks that game dev is iterative. You know, the thing that you can do today is not necessarily the thing that you can do next week. It's not necessarily the thing that you can do next month or even next year. It's like that. So while that may be the state of things today, you know, stay tuned because we're still building out the best damn space sim ever.
Yeah.
All right, we're almost at the end of the broadcast. Thanks, guys, for sticking around.
Already?
Here. Yeah, already. The hour is flying by. Will we have a chance to see Banu planet-side locations with all the depth and fidelity of the other hero landing zones? Now, some of the concept art that accompanied the cell had some alien-looking worlds that seem to match the Banu style of the ships that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Were those? Are we correct in assuming that was Banu architectural style?
Yeah, those were supposed to be Banu worlds. I can't remember if we actually marked which ones.
We didn't label them, no.
Yeah, but yeah, no, they were supposed to be Banu planets.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, again, you know, we have a handful of them called out, so.
They're part of that hazy roadmap down the way.
We have a lot of landing zones to build.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what else we got from the live chat here. Ballistic weapons and the Defender. Will the Defender be shred to pieces? Now, obviously, we have the different weapon types, energy weapons and ballistic weapons. People are saying with a weak hull and a strong shield, is the answer to the Defender just to equip a bunch of ballistic weapons and take them out of the skies?
It'll possibly give you a bit of an advantage, but it's not gonna completely tear through the shields and straight through the ship. And the Tavaran shields will help with that.
Okay. Let's see what else we got from the chat. Remember, folks, if you're watching on Twitch or YouTube, you can submit questions live in the subscriber chat on Spectrum. We have a few minutes left to go here, just looking through the questions here. One of the questions in chat was, is it safe to assume that if the Banu merchantman becomes larger, that the weaponry will scale to be appropriate? I think that's one of those things that we'll know when it comes time to actually do that work. Let's see. Has a defensive EMP weaponry been considered as a possible addition to the Defender's capabilities? We only have one ship with an EMP right now. It's the Avenger Warlock.
Right?
Yep.
So would adding an EMP to the Defender, it's a kind of a defensive weapon?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Johnny. I mean, it makes sense. You know, it's non-lethal, almost defensive.
Yeah,
weapon.
I mean, it's not been 100% confirmed yet, but we were considering getting EMP missiles on it by default, as we're trying to get more and more weapon and damage types out there at the moment, and we've already got the EMP weapon inside the Warlock. It'd be quite a good idea to get them out into all these different damage types, out into weapons, out into missiles, out into rockets and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's something that may come as stock on the Defender.
Okay.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Lore approved.
Regarding the Tavaran, just how extensively was their culture wiped out? Lore pieces sometimes seem to indicate that native Tavaran culture is unknown even to the Tavaran people, and this person finds it very hard to believe. This subscriber is not buying your crap, guys.
Well, I mean, it was several hundred years ago, so they've had multiple generations. And I mean, again, like part of the thing was not that their culture was taken away from them; it was that they burned it to the ground. So there's a lot of resentment, I think.
Who's they?
The Tavaran.
There was a large movement within their society to distance themselves from
their own culture.
This past that brought them to the point of near destruction.
Twice.
And so now there's a little bit more of kind of recovery going on amongst their people, of trying to reconnect with their past.
There's smaller factions of them that are trying to, not regain, but just sort of look back and are finding sort of merit in some of the stuff that they had used to believe in. But that was the sort of the thing, was that it was, I think was the key distinction that makes it a little bit more plausible as to why there could be modern Tavaran that didn't know about Rajora and stuff like that, was because for generations they were very actively like, we are not going to talk about it, we are not going to acknowledge it, we are just going to be very resentful of the fact that this is what nearly wiped us out. So that was sort of the idea behind.
Right. And last question before we wrap things up. Saddleball?
Yes.
What do the Banu like Saddleball so much?
They love all sports.
Really?
That was we never really specified the other sports, but yeah, that was the idea, which is that it was competition. It was like very exciting, and they just don't care about teams. They just like the athleticism.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Johnny, thank you for staying up late in the UK to be here live with us today.
Thank you for having me.
For folks who weren't here at the beginning or tuned in middle or whatever, missed the answer, big key points that I know folks are waiting for. Defender visibility. We've got a couple things in the works. It's in progress. By the time it comes time to build it, we think you'll be pretty happy with the visibility. Banu Merchantman, not nearly as big as the concept art looks, not as big as an Idris, much smaller than an Idris, but still very, very, very large. It definitely increased in size quite a bit. So
really cool brochure, by the way. If you haven't seen that,
yeah.
It's been in recent times one of my favorites. It's pretty sweet.
Right. So with that wraps up this month's Subscriber Town Hall. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Jared Huckabee. That's Will Weisbaum. This is Dave Haddock. On the big screen there was Johnny Jasivius from Foundry 42 UK. We'll see you next month, everybody.
Thanks.